Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Gary, and this is Beer Breakdown. It's a podcast by Hopped LA where we dig into the stories behind some of our favorite beers with the brewers that brew them. Today, I am joined by Adam Kestel, co-founder and brewer at Frogtown Brewery. Where is Frogtown Brewery, you might ask? It is a really cool neighborhood that's technically the Elysian Valley, right alongside Dodger Stadium, the 5 freeway, Glendale, Atwater Village, right in that part of town. And it's a really cool community. These guys opened up shop just about 5 years ago. They're on the precipice of celebrating their 5-year anniversary, and they're doing some really, really cool things. Today, we're talking about a beer that on the surface, on the label, I would never have enjoyed. This is a milkshake style IPA, a style that is just not my speed. But this one is a little bit different. So Painkiller is a tiki-style milkshake IPA. It's brewed with pineapple, toasted coconut, and Madagascar vanilla beans. And it's really unique, and it is a really cool beer. I really have enjoyed this one over the past couple years. And as this beer has evolved, it's just gotten better and better and better. So in this episode, we talk a lot about this beer, how it fits alongside the kind of brewing philosophy and the offering over at Frogtown, how that's evolved, what that looks like today, and just how cool this beer really is and why we enjoy it so much. So if you haven't been to Frogtown, if you haven't enjoyed their beers in a while, I highly recommend checking them out. They're about to celebrate their 5-year anniversary. As I said, it's a multi-day celebration, October 13th to 17th. Every day is a different thing. We'll be promoting their various events, and you can also check them out for all the details. But as always, this episode pairs up best with the beer itself. So head over to Frogtown, pick up some of this Painkiller. It's so good, and it's going to go so well with this episode. So pause the episode, go get the beer, and then come back to it. Your evening is set. You're going to really enjoy this tiki-style milkshake IPA. Shout out to Frogtown, 5 strong years. Lots of really cool tiki stuff going on. Lots of really cool taproom stuff going on. Just a really interesting and unique beer program going on in that part of town. So check them out and enjoy this conversation with Adam Kestel of Frogtown Brewery. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Hilo Liquor is the best bottle shop in LA County, hands down. They're about to be the best bottle shop in Southern California once they open up that Costa Mesa location. But I cannot speak highly enough of Hilo Liquor. They have a location in Culver City. They have a location in Long Beach, and they're bringing in some of the best beers you're going to see in Los Angeles. A lot of great local stuff, a lot of stuff from some of the best breweries around Southern California, and then a ton of stuff from around the country and also internationally. Just, it's insane the kind of beers they're getting. You're just going to have to go check them out yourself, because by the time this comes out, the beers that they have right now will already be gone because they're in such high demand. Head over to Instagram. That's a great place to follow along. At Hilo Beer, that's their beer Instagram. They're posting all the latest and greatest collection that they have in stock. They also have a email newsletter that's going to keep you up to date on the latest and greatest. If you go to hiloliquor.com, and you can jump on the email list there. I love Hilo. They also have a tasting bar that's open in Long Beach right now. They do have one in Culver. It's not open just yet, but every Friday they're doing some really cool curated flights where you can taste through a very special selection of beers that we just highly recommend checking them out. They also bring in food trucks throughout the week as well. So you have your evening set. You got a tasting, you got some food, you bring some stuff to go, you keep the party going. Hilo has got you covered. Check out Hilo at Hilo Liquor, at Hilo Beer, hiloliquor.com. Do that, and you'll be very happy you did. Adam, what's going on, brother? Good to see you.
Hey, likewise. It's I'm glad that we're able to at least connect through digitally here, and it's good seeing you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I literally was just there 2 days ago, so I mean, I got the in the flesh experience, and
yeah,
while that was amazing, I figured it was too much of a distraction. I had to separate us, and this is where we're going to get the full story behind everything that you're up to. So
yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know things are busy for you guys over there, so I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, Gary. So excited to get into some of the fun things we're doing over here.
Yeah, so I mean, I always like to start this off where, like, if anyone listening doesn't know what Frogtown Brewery is, I mean, what's the rundown? When people ask you that, like, what's your response?
Yeah, so we're located along the LA River here in the Frogtown neighborhood of Los Angeles. It's technically called Elysian Valley. So we're right along the LA River, kind of where the 2 and the 5 intersect. We've been here going on 5 years now. Getting ready to celebrate our 5-year anniversary. So I've been here a little bit longer than that with all of the pre-stages, which was always a blast. But yeah, so we're kind of where the 2 and the 5 intersect, really close to Dodger Stadium, and that's where we're located at. The name, like I said, comes from the neighborhood. Being Frogtown, we're close to that LA River, and so the story is the frogs used to come out of the river and kind of invade this whole neighborhood, and that's where the nickname Frogtown came from. So,
oh, that's good to know, because I mean, the name itself, if you didn't know that Frogtown was a neighborhood in Los Angeles, I'm sure when you're out at CBC and things like that, it's a very unique sounding name. It's really cool. And so I never knew the story.
Yeah, we get all kinds of funny stuff. Like, is this a Mark Twain? There's a Mark Twain book named Frogtown, and like there's a movie, How Comes to Frogtown? Like the movie, that's Frogtown. So there's a couple of different references to Frogtown. So it's always interesting when you're out traveling. Like we were just at CBC, we got a lot of like random questions. We did Blues-a-Palooza a month or two back.
Oh, sweet.
And it's just funny. Like the people there were all asking about Mark Twain. I'm like, I've never heard this reference before, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a native Angelino, and I didn't really know Frogtown until probably around when you guys started. I was like, what is this place? Like, I understand Dodger Stadium and Atwater and Echo Park and all that kind of stuff around there. But Frogtown I wasn't familiar with. And ever since I heard about it and have kind of been following you guys, been understanding that this is like a really unique community in the LA area. Like, I don't know anything else like it. Can you talk a little bit about like what is Frogtown as a neighborhood and community?
Yeah, so it's definitely an old community. It was pretty isolated because it was this weird community built between a bunch of freeways. And so people kind of didn't know it was down here. And so it really was kind of isolated off. So yeah, like I said, technically it's called Elysian Valley. Frogtown is its nickname. But it's a really, really cool community of people. And this area has changed drastically in the last 5 to 10 years, especially since we've been here. There's so many new businesses and really cool things happening in the area. Every other year they do the Frogtown Art Walk, so it's a very artist-centric area, so there's a lot of that happens here. There's some really cool businesses that have opened up over the years. Wax Paper, which is a sandwich shop. Spoke Bicycle Cafe, which is really cool. There's La Colombe Coffee Shop in the area. We have Salazar, like right on the corner here, which is one of our first draft accounts, Salazar, and we're still pouring strong there. So it's just really cool to be, a part of this neighborhood and see all these businesses being super successful. Just What I Needed, which is a vegan bakery, is here too, and like those guys are doing some killer stuff. We're going to be partnering with them on some things for the anniversary party. So it's really cool to be part of the neighborhood here.
Yeah, it's always super unique when I go out there. The LA River like walkway, bikeway is just like a really unique. I mean, it's it's a very signature LA place to be. And yeah, being able to like jump off the walk and head to Spoke and head to Frogtown and head to Wax Paper, like it's I think it's kind of under the radar a little bit in terms of, people knowing about it. And I think it's just like a hidden gem, great like afternoon type of activity. So you guys are, mentioned 5-year anniversary. So let's rewind a little bit. Like, let's go back 5 years.
Yeah.
2016. Obviously, you guys were in planning before then. But what was Frogtown, the neighborhood, like? Like, why did you choose it? How did you get there?
Yeah. So 5-6 years ago is when we opened up here. Yeah, 6 years ago, I guess, when we started the whole process. We were looking all over the place. We originally were going to do a brewery in Silver Lake. And it turns out that the city doesn't like that very much because the type of building and zoning you need to be in for a brewery is really heavy manufacturing or at least medium to light manufacturing. And so we were quickly found that out, and so we nixed our search of Silver Lake because there's not a lot of spaces there at the time that would allow for a brewery, ceiling height for tanks and things like that. The infrastructure just wasn't there. So we searched for 6 to 9 months for a location, and we kept coming back to Frogtown, and we were seeing different buildings here, and it just was a really cool area of the city, kind of like an untapped area. It was pretty quiet over here at that time as far as the other businesses that were here. Our street was super quiet and sleepy, except for a couple of towing companies that were here. So, but there was a lot of warehouses and heavy manufacturing. So this whole area was built in the 40s and 50s as an aerospace to support war efforts and all of the aerospace stuff that was going on. So most of the buildings around this area are big manufacturing buildings that had huge machines in there. Still to this day, our neighbor does this, is where they build parts for airplanes. And so it was kind of a cool little area. And so that's kind of where we settled on in this area. And we're it's a cool space thing. And the whole aerospace thing, let's do the steampunk vibe at the brewery and play into that because it's kind of the history of this location. So we kind of went full in for that side of it.
Nice. And your co-founder, Mike, and you, what were you guys doing before you decided hey, we're going all in on creating this brewery? What's your background look like?
Yeah, for sure. So there's actually three of us main owners at Frogtown. So it's myself, Mike Voss, and then Gustavo Rojas as well has become a partner, and he's a local Angelino, and so it's been really great having him as a partner in this as well as Mike, because he's local and understands the neighborhood. Myself and Mike included are both originally from Chicago, so I was actually looking to open a brewery in Chicago. Mike was living out here, and Mike and I used to work together in Chicago at a hospital, and Mike moved out here, and I was looking to possibly open up a brewery in Chicago. I was really heavy into the homebrew scene at that time. Had a full 3-vessel, all-electric, 10-gallon brew set up in my garage, semi-automated flow meters and all that stuff on this little homebrew setup. So it was a blast. And so I was kind of going down that road, and then I got a call to come out to California to work for a big hospital out here because I was working in a hospital in Chicago, and they kind of made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And so I transplanted out to LA, kind of out of nowhere. It all happened in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks.
Wow.
And so moved out here, sold off all my home brewing equipment because I was there's no way I'm going to be able to brew in LA and have all this equipment with the limited space. So sold off all my homebrew equipment, and about a month after I sold everything, I was out here getting situated with LA, and my buddy Mike hit me up, and he's like, "Hey, friend of mine gave me these carboys. I want to make some beer. Can you show me the ropes?" I was like, "Yeah, you can't just make beer with some carboys though. We need some equipment." So he's like, "Yeah, well, can you walk me through it? And I want to learn." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we got some equipment, started homebrewing on his deck here in LA. He lives in Glass Hill Park. And so we started brewing under this live oak tree on his deck, and We were just having a blast at it. We started doing parties for our friends. One thing led to another with all these parties, and people kept motivating us to do it. And I was like, yeah, well, I kind of had this start of a business plan in Chicago, and he's like, well, let's expand on it. Let's do it. He's like, I'm in. So we partnered up with Gustavo, and he became one of our early investors in the business as well. And the three of us, just a lot of sweat equity, and decided to do it. So, and then, here we are, 5.5 years later.
It's a beautiful story. I love it.
Yeah.
So you guys started out, from what I remember, there was a homebrew component to Frogtown Brewery in those early days. Like, what was that all about?
Yeah, so, again, I think like many people who turn into professional brewing start as homebrewers, myself included, obviously. And we really wanted to pay homage to that and open up a homebrew shop. We were having, there was I think one, maybe two homebrew shops here in LA. There was like Eagle Rock Brew Supply, I think, and then there was one up in Northridge, like the Wine and Cheese and Brewing Shop, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't a lot of selection for us here in LA. Like, those places were great for what they were, and so we're like, well, if we're gonna do this brewery thing, like, let's try and respect the homebrewers too, and get this going. We knew it was gonna take a long time to be permitted for a brewery, so like, we have this space. It's gonna take us 9 to 12 months, whatever, to get the permits. Let's open up a homebrew shop up front. We can give away samples of our products. We can do some product testing. We can support the local homebrew community. We can have really fresh ingredients, because we'll be buying at larger quantities, can split it up. And so we did. We went for it, and it turned out it was really great. Like, we had a lot of really great customers come through. A lot of our regulars today were started as homebrew customers of ours. Unfortunately, about a year and a half into that, we had the brewery up and running, and we just quickly ran out of space for production in the back. And the homebrew side was still doing great. It's just we really desperately needed the space. And so we're like, we need some office space. I was working off a laptop at the bar. I was like, I need a place to work and do all the recipe creation and things like that, and ordering. So we had to shut that down about a year and a half, 2 years in, to make room for the brewery to grow. But it was a really fun component to the start of the business.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, if that, having that homebrew community, like tapping into that, if you saw it play dividends. And you mentioned like some of those early regulars were some of those homebrewers, like being able to like be a new brewery and just like open your door, like without a community, like without an introduction to the community.
Yeah,
that's a hard thing to do. And so I don't know if it's just like super smart on your part, or if it was just something that you guys stumbled into, but being able to like to really build relationships in that homebrew community early on seems like a no-brainer,
Yeah, it was a really good decision for us. I think it allowed us to really meet our customers, become part of the neighborhood, meet craft beer focused people. One of the fun things we did, this is kind of a fun story, and I always get excited about this, is like, we used to do a brew on premise course here. So we started doing brew on premise, where we kind of took the homebrew thing to the next level, where we allowed people to come in, buy the ingredients, and then they would actually brew with myself or Mike here on site, and do a 5-gallon batch, get them into it, whether that was all grain or extract or whatever that was, for people who didn't have the space in LA to do it at home, but wanted to learn homebrew and do something for themselves for a party or friends. So we did this brew on premise thing for a while here, and that was super popular. But what I'm most proud of that is like what came out of that. So three of the people that came for brew on premise classes are now like professional brewing industry. So guys over at Lawless Brewery were one of our brew on premise workshop customers. A brewery out in Ohio. The guys over there, like, they're super great. They started doing that, and then another female came in. She now works over at Modern Times. So it's like really cool to see like wow, like these people came in, they learned to brew for the first time, or some of them were experienced, and the guys a lot less knew what they were doing, but they needed a space and needed the equipment and things like that to do some pilot stuff. And so it was just fun working with all these different people and seeing them become professionals in the industry. So yeah, it's really, really inspiring.
So just like a rough timeline on maybe like when you secured your location to like when you opened the homebrew to like when you opened the brewery, like what did that timeline look like?
Yeah, so I think we got our location in 2014, end of 2014, somewhere in there. And then, or maybe early 2015. You're really challenging me here. And then we started the homebrew shop. We opened up probably within a month or two of getting the lease signed over here. And we were starting all of our permitting process. And then it took us about a year from the time we opened the homebrew shop, not 10 months to a year, until we had our first actual brewery tasting room open experience for the public. So it was all in probably 12 to 16 months from the time we got the location until we were serving beer to the public. And the homebrew shop was open probably a month or two into that. So yeah,
not bad. Could be worse, right?
No, yeah, it was fun, man. It was a blast. It still is. I mean, it still feels great to walk into a crowded brewery space. So.
Oh, I'm sure. So on that note, so for anyone that hasn't visited, we're painting pictures with words here. So kind of describe to me the Frogtown experience. Like, what's it like when you walk in? What's the aesthetic? What's the vibe like?
Yeah, so it's changed. So people who've been here, people who haven't been here, if you haven't been here in a while, it is much different than it used to be, pre-COVID. So COVID allowed us, it had a lot of downsides to it, but it had some upsides too. So it allowed us to really take a step back and focus on more of our design aesthetic inside, redoing some of that space, changing the brewing space a little bit as well. So when you come into Frogtown Brewery, we've got about a 5,000 square foot production space with our tasting room inside. And so it's a nice, like, dark steampunk, really cool vibe of a brewery. We have an airship above our taps, and our bar top is completely made out of hand-hammered copper. So it's a really, really cool bar top. And then during COVID, we were lucky enough to get the space right next to the brewery and converted that into a dedicated 5,000 square foot outdoor beer garden. So we've got seating for 150 people outside, and it's a beautiful space that we've created that's safe and inviting to people, especially during these times. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I feel like Frogtown, the branding, like obviously, for anyone watching this on video, there's the logo work behind you, and it's got that very steampunk aesthetic. You got the frog component into it, and yeah, drinking inside, it's got this industrial vibe, but it's like industrial in a kind of like weirdly vintage modern way. It's the hammered copper on the bar top just gives it like a really unique vibe.
Hammered copper, gas pipes. We've got some really cool uplighting that we turned out of like gas pipes and copperized them, and we just wanted to create a whole customer experience when you come in here. Not only through the beer, but through the actual space itself. So we wanted you to feel that through and through, and so we're always expanding that and making that better, but we really wanted it not to just be a warehouse space like so many breweries are.
Yeah, and I think that from a thematic standpoint, I've seen plenty of breweries do the bare minimum, and be like, this is our theme. And like what you guys have done feels really well intentioned in that it's not like over the top cheesy steampunk, like in your face, forcing you to swallow it down, but it's like it's there, it's giving you like a different vibe to be within, and it transports you a little bit while still being comfortable and just relaxed and chill. So I think you did a really good job from a design standpoint inside. And then, obviously you mentioned the beer, and that's kind of a big piece of it. Looking at the beer board today, there's a lot going on, a lot of different styles. There's I don't remember the number of different beers you had on tap the other day, but it was probably about 20, right?
Yeah, we've got right now. I think we have 14 or 15 on tap.
Okay.
That's a little different than when we started. So,
Yeah.
if you were an early Frogtown customer, our menu was pretty conservative. We were focusing on really classic styles. We were pretty conservative with all of our brews because we were learning how to do this, from the ground up. Like, I don't come from a professional brewing background, and so scaling these recipes up was a challenge for us, and so we took it slowly, and so those first few batches, while they were great, they weren't like incredible batches of beer at the time, and so we really have honed in our craft here at Frogtown and expanded the recipe, and so once we felt really comfortable that we could nail these classic styles, then we started, all right, now we're going wherever. Let's do some fun stuff here at Frogtown. So we started doing some funky stuff. We started doing some sours here. We've gone into the pastry sours a little bit, the milkshake IPAs. So we started doing some fun stuff, and we've got a lot of really cool stuff coming down the pipe.
Is there, if someone was to ask you, what's your brewing philosophy, or what's kind of your intention behind the beer program, is there anything you can give, any insight there?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy is always a lot of these newer startup breweries, or some of them that I saw in the industry, were they were just starting off doing crazy funky stuff, and it's somewhat easy to make a beer that is all funky and crazy and fruited and blah blah blah, because you can hide a lot of flavors and missteps in the brewing process in those crazy beers. You can make a double or triple IPA that has some flaws in it, and you're not going to taste those flaws. So we wanted to make sure that we could nail the classic styles, and do a killer Pilsner, do a killer Blonde Ale. Some of these beers that are somewhat generic, you can't hide your crimes in those beers, right? So we wanted to make sure that we can nail those beers before we started getting funky and doing stuff outside of those bounds. So that's kind of our philosophy, is to make sure you're starting with a really good core, and then be able to do some fun stuff. So
from a core standpoint, I know there's some brands that you guys produce that I see more than others that I think have a little bit more longevity in your history. So what does the core kind of look like? I know core brands are kind of a weird thing right now in beer, but what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, our number one seller still to this day is our Blonde Ale, our Kinky Blonde Ale. That beer is picked up the most by our distributor. It's in the most accounts here in LA. It's what we sell the most of in the tap room. So that's really the biggest core beer that we have, is our Blonde Ale. And then we've done a couple other things that are out in market, and more at scale. Our War on Sobriety, our double IPA, is a really good seller in the market. So we pushed that one out there quite a bit. We just rebranded all of the artwork for that can. So look forward to that here in the coming weeks.
Nice.
And then we did a session IPA, good or bad, that it's a session. I mean, that's always interesting how the market takes a session IPA. But we called it a session. We stuck with it being a session. And I think that's done really well for us. So I know that is kind of one of those, some people love it, some people hate it kind of styles. Right. But that is definitely a core for us. It's our feathered in session IPA. It's Citron Mosaic hops, and it's a session that doesn't drink like a session. So 4.5%, but it's full bodied. So that beer doesn't taste watered down. It's easy drinking for being 4.5%. It doesn't taste watered. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point, session it's just kind of a naming thing at this point. it's gotten like brewed IPA, it's like you can call it whatever you want,
Yeah, we were talking to our distributor, and they're like, well, what if you like, this is great, but what if you called it a hoppy pale ale? I was like, we could, we could change it to a hoppy pale ale as a style, but I'm like, I'm not changing it. Like, we're gonna stick with this. The customers that are buying it love it, and I don't want to change it.
Yeah, I hear you there, and it's like you could buckle to like short-term trends like that, or you could just like hold it down, and like what is popular in beer or what is acceptable in beer changes like every single year, and just write it out, make sure it's good, and just focus on that, and like let time dictate the rest.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, so if you come into Frogtown, like, you'll see some of the same beers that you saw 3 or 4 years ago on the menu. You'll see a lot of new stuff.
That's pretty cool.
We used to only have 5 or 6 beers on tap at any given time, but those cores are still here, and we've got a really dedicated customer base that gets pretty upset if those cores are missing. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think that's the reason why I thought there was like 20 beers on the board, because I remember the days where the selection was a lot more limited, and now it was like, wow, I was getting that feeling where I was like, I kind of want to try that, and then it kept going. So moving into like the specialty beers, the a little bit crazy stuff. I know we'll talk more about like some of the anniversary things, but specifically today's episode is about the Painkiller Tiki Milkshake IPA. I'd love to dig into that beer specifically, and I'm just going to pull it out of the cooler real quick.
Yeah. Let me grab one too. 1 second here. Let me grab
Sure.
We got a can here as well. Pop this open here. So the Painkiller, what a fun beer.
Yeah, like bring me back to before you even produced it, and from what I can recall, this was a 2-year anniversary release, right?
This was, good memory there. Or research you want.
So what was the mindset like? We're gonna do it, and at that point, this was 2018. Milkshake IPA was in its infancy, especially here on the West Coast. So if you can remember, like, what was the conversation like? What was the decision making look like in getting to this beer?
Yeah, I remember it pretty fully. Like, we were. I think I was out with one of my business partner Gustavo at a random tiki bar or something, and I was introduced to the Painkiller 5 or 6 years ago as a cocktail. And for those of you that don't know the Painkiller cocktail, it's not a true tiki. The tiki people are very purist, so the Painkiller isn't like a true original tiki cocktail, but it's definitely my favorite tiki inspired cocktail, if you will. I don't want to offend anybody in the tiki world, but it's a pineapple and coconut forward IP or cocktail, and so I was like, man, this is delicious. Like, I want to make these beers like a beer taste like this, and so how can I do that? How can I make this like creamy pineapple coconut? It's reminiscent of a pina colada, but a little more alcohol, much better rum. So that was where it started, and I was like, I wonder if I can do this, or how can I do this? And so we had never done something like that at all at Frogtown. It was definitely going way out of our comfort zone. And so we're like, all right, we're going to try this thing out and see how it does. And so we rushed to release it for our 2-year anniversary party, and it was the talk of the festival. Everyone's like, I've never tasted a beer like this, and we were all blown away by it, and we're like, we have to make this a regular thing.
Yeah, I don't remember when the first time I had it was. It was definitely a little while after that. So what did it look like in terms of, okay, you made a batch for the anniversary. I'm assuming it was a relatively small batch, but like, how did it pick up steam after that? You're like, okay, we need to keep working on this. I'm sure the recipe evolved a little bit as you either scaled it up or kind of figured out what did you want it to stabilize on from a recipe ingredient standpoint. So what did that look like?
So we've done, we try and keep our recipes pretty true to what they originally were.
Nice.
We're not 100% purists in that game, but we have definitely tweaked the Painkiller recipe a little bit. The main malt bill of the beer hasn't changed much, if at all, since its original conception, and it's basically a 50-50 split of, for the base malts, our two-row and Golden Promise. And so we've kept that pretty much the same going forward. Obviously, we've got some flaked oats in there, flaked wheat in there that we're using as well, and a little bit of Munich for color. So that base of the beer has pretty much stayed the same. What we have experimented on is kind of everything else a little bit. So the biggest thing that we've experimented on is definitely yeast selection in the beer. Yeast has changed over the last 4 years, so we've kind of tried a little bit of everything in this beer, from the London ales to the hazy IPA strains to the Kvike strains. So we have changed that a little bit. We changed the fruit a little bit just by upping it. A lot of those fruit flavors, as they ferment out over time, you start to lose some of those flavors, especially with like the pineapple. It can start to die off over time, and we don't use any extracts in this beer. It's all real fruit, real coconut, real Madagascar vanilla bean, which is crazy expensive. So we use 100%. Everything in that beer is made with all real ingredients, no extracts. And so we're like, well, we need to up the fruit content a little bit if we want some of these flavors to stay through the fermentation cycle. We need to play with some of our yeast strains to see what yeast strains highlight these fruity flavors that we want out of this beer. And so those are the things that we've been experimenting with over the years on this. And we've settled on, for the last 8 to 10 batches, something like that, we switched over to using Kvike as our main yeast strain for this beer, which is an interesting selection, but we really like the way that the yeast treats the fruit and the way that it preserves some of those tropical flavors. And to be honest, it's super fast, so it ferments really fast, and we fermented at 88 degrees, which is just insane. That blew my mind when we started fermenting beers above 80 degrees. It finishes out in 1 week. It's almost ready to go. We let it sit and mellow out for a few days before we release it, but those are really kind of the big things that. Sorry, I've been blabbering on about this beer a little bit too much, but
no, this is what we want to hear.
Yeah. So those are the main things that we've kind of changed with it over the years.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, I'm not a milkshake IPA guy. I don't drink a lot of them, so I don't know. But if you would have told me you ferment out your milkshake IPA with Kvike, I would have been surprised. So I'm like, but it makes sense though, from like a tropical aromatic flavor component. Like, it makes a lot of sense. And from a business standpoint, balancing production time and ingredient costs, like, that is a really nice efficiency move, I think, when it comes to getting this beer into package more frequently throughout the year. That's really interesting. I mean, I think milkshake IPA, you think like the yeast strains that produce that, I think more of that kind of like classic New England style haze.
London Ale. I mean, that was our go-to. Was like London 3 was our go-to yeast strain for a long time this year. That worked out really, really well. We tried, YE's came out, or White Labs, I think it was, came out with a London Fog strain that we tried for a little bit too, and that was interesting. But yeah, we ended up selling on Kvike. It may not stick around forever. I think some of those London strains, we sell through this beer really quick when we produce it, and so it's nice to, obviously, like you said, on the production side to kind of get this going quicker. The one thing that those London strains, I think there is a benefit to is that longevity on those strains with the flavors is a little bit better on like the London strains that we've seen. So I see Kvike, when we use Kvike in this beer, the flavors are really great, and it's because it's strong fermenting. We don't filter any of our beers, and so Kvike is such an intense strain. We see some of those fruit flavors, they're stronger in the beginning, but when we date test these, like at that like 60-day mark, we start to see that kind of really start to drop off. And that's probably due to, and that's even in cold storage. So if it's warm storage, it might even be dying off at like 45 days. So, we saw with London Ale that would last a little bit longer. But we were selling through it so fast, and the customer, I hope, is drinking it fast. We decided to go with the Kvike side.
So I guess as of recent, do not sit on this beer at all. So at least recently, like how frequently are you guys producing this beer?
Not as frequently as the customer wants. So we're limited on fermentation space right now. We're currently at like 100 barrels of fermentation space, and hopefully next week upping that to 160 barrels. We've been really, really waiting on a couple of 30 barrel tanks to get in. Taking too long with all the delays. So we're going to be producing it more frequently coming out after we get those tanks. But right now we're probably putting it out once a month as a new release, and it's in the tap room for 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks before it sells out. So we try and keep it coming back on a frequent basis. But
that's pretty frequent,
yeah.
That's actually way more than I thought you were gonna say. I was thinking like 8 times a year or something. So we're looking at way more frequent.
We're doing it every like 4 to 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. So I'm salivating. I can't wait to try it. I haven't drank this beer in over a year. But before I crack it open, I want to look at the can and the package. You guys have gone through a pretty major evolution from like your core branding. You mentioned some of that over the past year or so. This beer in particular stands out on the shelf. It stands out from the rest of your brands. Talk to me about the design, about what is this going to have a refresh, or is this like what we can expect to see?
This beer was the first Tiki series beer that we produced. And the design was done by a local here in the neighborhood of Frogtown, which is really, really great for the original design. We refreshed some of our branding as far as our logo and the typeface for our fonts. It's now a custom typeface. So we refreshed this can slightly about 6 months ago with kind of our new logo and our new branding going forward. This beer is slated to have kind of a new, a full new wrap done on the whole can. So the can art will likely be changing sometime in the future. It's on the schedule to be done. We've been really excited about working with our new designer, Patrick Moss, who's a really, really great illustrator. He's done the 2 latest beers in our Tiki series, Missionary's Downfall, and the yet to be released Spindrift for the anniversary party. That we're really, really excited about the new labels on those, and we went all in on the Tiki theme and really upped the ante, if you will, on our can art for those beers. And so we do want to refresh this at some point.
Cool.
But what's on here now, if you look at the top banding and the bottom banding on this is done by a really great artist named Michael Uhlenkott. He is a really big guy in the Tiki world, and he does a lot of really cool Tiki fabrics. And so the top banding and the bottom banding are actually his designs that we were fortunate enough to be able to use on this can. And just super excited about that. And, I still love this original can, but we want to kind of make it match all of our new branding.
Yeah, I love this design too. It's like super simplistic. It gives you exactly what you need with that Tiki, more subtle Tiki on that banding. But yeah, just knowing what you've done with the last Tiki release it's an experience. Like the entire can kind of transports you into a different mindset to drink the beer. And so I can only imagine that where you guys are going to take things for this beer. So I'm excited to see that. Yeah.
We've been putting really cool like stories on our new can art too. So like we've been coming up with really neat stories. Mike Voss, the other owner, has been doing a lot of our little story writing on these new cans, and so trying to really like, you look at the can, you read the story, we want you to feel like you're really getting into an experience with the beer.
I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, keep it up. So I mean, Painkiller, it's time. I'm gonna open this up. I can't wait. Yes,
let's do it.
Talk so much about it. I can't wait to try it. Just like I remember from an appearance standpoint, like from a consistency on the visual aspect, I mean, this is like just like it was a couple years back when I poured it, or maybe last year during COVID. I think I picked up in the early days of COVID. So yeah, really nice. From an aroma standpoint, I mean, I think that we can just assume, looking at this, is a tiki style with pineapple, with toasted coconut, with Madagascar vanilla, but maybe walk me through the nose a little bit.
We wanted that tropical experience through and through on this beer. We've stuck with the three original hops for this beer. There's some new ones that might fit better, but we decided not to change it. And so the original three hops that we use for our dry hopping on this beer are Amarillo, Eldorado, and Big Secret. And so each of those bring their own tropical component to this. So you get a lot of that tropical citrus notes from the Amarillo and the Eldorado, almost like a candy-like flavor from the Eldorado. And then the Big Secret kind of brings in that pineapple flavor and smell too. Again, using real fruit, real Madagascar vanilla bean, you start to get that. The coconut, we used to toast that in-house batch by batch. We've luckily found a nice source of toasted coconut now, so we don't have to toast those ourselves anymore. That's a long day of toasting 50 plus pounds of coconut.
I'm sure.
But yeah, you get on the nose, I just get all of that pineapple and coconut flavor coming right out of the beer. Really tropical sense is what I get out of this. Like, just, smells like an island.
Yeah, it really does. And what's really nice about this, I think it's not as like sweet on the nose than you would anticipate I think anytime you're seeing milkshake IPA on a can, you're kind of like, all right, what's this going to be, like real candy-ish? And it's almost like you're smelling the pineapple through the actual like exterior of it. Like you're getting some of that like earthy, I don't even know what you call that, husk or whatever the outside of the pineapple is. Yeah, like you're smelling it through the husk. There's like a slight bit of earthiness to it. I think the toasting on the coconut dials that down and really just kind of like complements it with everything really well. Like it's not like coconut and pineapple. It's like all meshed together in a really nice way. So pretty cool stuff. And yeah, you get that citrus just rounding it out as well, like orange peel for sure. Yeah, really nice. Okay, let's give it a try.
Melon in there. Yeah.
Oh man, that is so good. Oh man. So this is tiki in a glass, right? Like this is exactly what you want to be experiencing right now. Wow, it's so good. It's juicy. It's activating the entire palate. Like my entire mouth has started salivating as a result of this. I think balance, like you don't think of balance when you think of milkshake IPA, but what you've done here is incredibly well balanced.
And I think that's a missed mark for a lot of milkshake IPAs. Like people go crazy on the lactose, and it's like we tried that. We tried going crazy on the lactose, and it just is like it coats your mouth too much. It's too sweet. I want to know I'm drinking a tiki-inspired beer, and so we do keep those hop elements in there. It's a little bit hoppy. Like you can still taste those hops. We don't do a lot of bit hops in the bittering side of this, but we kind of keep most of the hops in the obviously the aroma and flavor side. But we wanted to make sure the hops played a characteristic in this beer too. So we try and keep the lactose down a little bit, and let those fruit flavors and the hops come through a little more.
Yeah, I think it's less creamy. It's not that it's not creamy, but it's less creamy than you would think this type of beer would be. So I think it all depends on like what your expectations are going into it. Me personally, I don't want it to be overly thick and like chalky almost. And so what you've done here is like you've created body without making it chewy. So that's pretty cool. It's like very juice reminiscent, you know. It's really nice.
Fresh squeezed kind of taste, right? Fresh squeezed pineapple. We really wanted to make that fruit forward because so many, you know, all of the tiki cocktails, the good ones at least, are all made with fresh juice. You know, they squeeze them fresh every day, and we wanted to mimic that in the beer. We wanted to really, you know, like I said, me and Gustavo and Mike, we're all into the tiki world, especially Gustavo. He's a big tiki head, and so we wanted to be authentic with the tiki series.
Yeah, this is cool. I really like where this beer has gone. What's your thoughts on, like, I know Milkshake IPA isn't a style, and when you started making this beer looked like the beer industry looked different, and now we have like this whole pastry movement in beer. What's your feeling on like I'm producing a milkshake IPA? Like, you know, like I was saying, certain people who are expecting pastry milkshake might be expecting something different than this. So what is your thoughts on like this style and producing a beer in this style?
Yeah, so kind of like you said, like we were one of the first, you know, at least here in LA, to be kind of doing some of the milkshake style beers, and they have really expanded and they've gone pretty crazy. You know, the lactose for me, like adding all that extra lactose and that sweetness to the beers is a fun experiment, but it's not, for me, those beers are like, I'm going to have one of those and it's fun and I'll talk about it, but I'm not going to sit down and have another one. So we wanted to keep the style true to, like, even though it's not a style, we wanted to keep it a drinkable beer that you could have more than one. So we wanted to keep that dial back a little bit because, like you said, some of these milkshake IPAs that are out here now in the world, they're delicious in their own right, but sometimes they're just too much for me. So, you know, at the end of the day, I kind of brew the beer that I like to drink, and we just hope other people like it too. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, we touch on this with like the session IPA label. Like, is there a future where like this beer isn't called milkshake IPA? Like where you're like, oh, I think that this might not be the best name. Like, I'm not saying that you should. I'm just like, there's a world where you could consider it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. We could. We might, you know, at some point change that. We're not super set on that, but, you know, it'll stick for now. But like you said, like the style has changed pretty drastically over the years. So the beer might not meet the customer's expectation of what the style is, but, you know, it's not really a style. So.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You know? Well, I think what's interesting too is like looking at this style and looking at the fruit puree industry and how that's evolved over the past 3 years. Like you mentioned, you guys, you know, use real pineapple. You're not going like heavy on this puree thing. Like that's, you know, where the pastry world is going, is like heavy puree, heavy lactose, like massive mouthfeel body.
Not even puree. You know, we use puree for a lot of stuff, but you know, there's a lot of people who are using just extracts now. Like the extract game has gotten pretty insane.
That's what I mean.
And Marie's putting out some of these other like craft extract companies. And I don't harp on anybody for doing that. Like some of these beers that are made with these fruit extracts taste great. And at the end of the day, if it's a beer that tastes better to you and to the consumer, you know, go for it. You know, if that's what you like and what the consumer demands, like I don't have any problem with that. So we just might not do it or go full into that. But who knows? We might experiment with it someday too. So.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, leave the door open. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. So yeah, it's like you produce this beer and you're not like, all right, we're going to do a bunch of milkshake IPAs. Like the tiki thing, like you mentioned, Gustavo being just authentically himself into the tiki world, and you and Mike as a byproduct going along with that as well.
Yep.
You've released, I think, 2 or 3 other tiki beers so far, and you have another one coming up. So what is tiki as a theme, as a inspiration for you and Frogtown? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I just really like, getting dragged along to all these crazy tiki bars and meeting the people who are into tiki. They're a fun group of people, and so they've all got a unique story, and we wanted to kind of appeal to them and partner with some of these really cool people in the industry to do these fun beers and do these collaborations that we've been so fortunate to do with people in the cocktail world. And so we've done Painkiller, and then our second release was a beer called Brown Magic, which was a black IPA based off a cocktail called the Black Magic. The beer was called Brown Magic. And the third iteration was Missionary's Downfall, our collab with Dirty Dick, and that beer is still being produced here. We've done a few batches of that, and it's selling like crazy. It's a really, really fun beer for us. And then the next one is going to be called Spindrift, and that beer, as of the recording of this, isn't announced to the public yet, but maybe when it's released, will be. We're going to release it for our anniversary party, and it's going to be a beer based off of a drink from Jeff Beachbum Berry called Spindrift. And he is like the tiki god in the tiki world of cocktails. So he has a bar in New Orleans called Latitude 29, and we've been fortunate enough to craft up a collaboration with him on this beer, and it's going to be a fruited sour as our next tiki release. It's going to have a pretty heavy, like passion fruit, orange, vanilla bean, a little bit of lemon in there as well. So those are kind of the flavors to look forward to in this upcoming release on Wednesday of our anniversary party. So keep an eye out for that one. We're going to probably announce it in the next few days officially.
Okay,
so
cool.
We've already teased it a little bit on our flyers, so it's going to be out there.
Sweet. So 5 years coming up. Let's just take a second to appreciate the milestone first and foremost. Congrats, man. Yeah. It's been a year and a half for sure. But yeah, it's 5 years strong. What are your thoughts going into that 5-year mark, and then looking forward? Any feelings about the future too?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for saying that. It's been a ride. We're all hands-on people here at the brewery, for better or for worse. We try and take on too much usually, and do it ourselves. So we're at the size now where we're like, all right, we can start hiring people and having professionals come in to do different things for the brewery, and in all aspects of construction and equipment and all that stuff. So we are fortunately in a nice spot 5 years in to where we've got a really good customer base. The product is selling really well. We're expanding the beer program here, and so that's been really, really a great experience, and it feels really nice to be at this stage. It's been a tiring 5 years, but I'm super, super excited for the next 5 and all the things that we have in the roadmap. There's some really cool things that we have in the works for Frogtown, and I can't wait to share it with the public. So some big news coming with that. So look forward to some really cool things coming up here.
That's awesome. Tell me about the anniversary. Normally you guys do a big block party out front, but you're switching it up this year. Like, what does it look like this year?
Yeah, we used to do this big block party, and we might bring it back again next year. It's just where we close the street down and do a whole thing. So this year we're taking an approach where we're going to kind of spread it out a little bit, because of COVID restrictions and the new restrictions that are being placed on us on October 7th for bars and breweries. It kind of limits some of the things that we can and can't do. And so to make it a safe space for everyone, we decided to make it a long event instead of one big bang type of event. So we're going to do 5 days for 5 years. Every single day of our anniversary party is going to be a new beer release. We're doing live music and events on every single day. I can walk you through the days if you want me to give you the quick rundown, but
give me a quick one. Yeah, give me a quick rundown.
Yeah, for sure. So we're starting. It's going to be October 13th through the 17th, I believe, are the dates. So it's a Wednesday through a Sunday. So Wednesday, we're going to kick it off with this really great Tiki collab release. We've got a Tiki band that's going to be playing live at Frogtown. So releasing that Spindrift beer on that Wednesday. Thursday, we're doing 5-course beer and food pairing, teaming up with Just What I Needed here in LA, Krugerman Pickles, and probably say cheese or it's a cheese shop. So we're doing some really cool cheese, food, pastries, pairings with beer on that Thursday. Also releasing a new Sabro Hazy IPA that day. And then that brings us into Friday, where we're going to be releasing, I know it's a little late, but we're releasing our Oktoberfest beer. So it's a Marzen style that we're going to have. And so we're going to celebrate with a big Oktoberfest event, sauerkraut, sausages, the whole thing, pretzels. So that'll be a whole fun day of Oktoberfest events. And then, again, live music all day on Friday. And Saturday is kind of the big day for us, where we're releasing our anniversary release, which is our Prince George Imperial Porter. It's aged in bourbon barrels on Madagascar vanilla bean. So we're going to be releasing that in bottles on Saturday, along with some new T-shirts. We just got these fresh ones in today.
Nice.
So super excited about those. So all that will be dropping on Saturday. And then Sunday, we're going to slow things down a little bit. We're going to have more of a chill vibe. We're putting on our new hard seltzer that's Baja Blast inspired. And, doing micheladas and having some oldies and blues and kind of a more chill vibe and slow down on Sunday. So we're super, super stoked about the whole week, and we're excited to see all the people that come out for it.
Yeah, it sounds rad. Congrats on that. That's amazing. Sounds like a nice week. And it actually, while the block party thing is awesome too, this whole spreading out over multiple days with different vibes on each day, I kind of dig that. That's my speed for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
cool. I don't know if it's more work or less work for us, but it's going to be fun regardless. Right. I'll tell you what, releasing 5 beers for us when we only have 5 fermenters has been a big challenge on the production side, but
I'm sure
we're going to make that work.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask you when we were talking about Painkiller, you and I were talking about one of your somewhat recent additions to the tap room, the slushy machine. Have you ever done anything with Painkiller as a slushy?
We have. We've tried a bunch of different beers. So slushy machines, love them or hate them. I don't judge either way. So they're fun. I'll admit I enjoy them every once in a while to have a beer slushy. The Painkiller, we did that in the slushy machine, and it turns out pretty good. What was interesting about taking all of our beers and putting them in the slushy machine is they all kind of turn out a little bit different. And I thought Painkiller would be like the best one to do right off the bat, and we tried it. And while it is very, very good, it's interesting that this particular beer, when it gets really cold and crystallizes, there's so many hops in this beer because it is a really hoppy beer. Deep down inside of it, it extracts a lot of the bitterness from those hops. And so we kept getting this really bitterness from the beer when we slushified it, and we had to counteract that with a lot of like coconut, syrup, and trying to like make it a little bit sweeter. and that turns out really great. But the beer itself, when we were just doing the raw beer, it's like, the hops are really taking over in this. It's really bitter.
You would think that it would go perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So things don't always work out the way you think they will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat of a purist when it comes to beer. Like, I'm not super into all the new school stuff that's emerging, but the beer slushy, I'm okay with. I don't know why.
Have you done it? You've tried them?
I haven't tried it, but like, I'm okay with it. It sounds good. It looks good. Like, when we were talking the other day, I was like, I'm going to do an article on Hopped LA on all the best beer slushies that you can get around. And I don't know if those guys at Radiant in Anaheim, they do a beer soft serve.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know what that's all about, but I'm into it.
Yeah, I think Kip at LA Ale Works was the first one to do it. I tried some of his early on and was like, oh man, this is really cool. So and he's been doing it for years. So he was definitely a pioneer in the beer slushy world. So props to him.
I'll have to give him a special shout out for sure.
Yeah, you should, for sure. He'll enjoy that. He's proud of that slushy machine, as he should be. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, I think that kind of like the slushy machine, I think, is a great bow to tie on like the story of Frogtown up to this point, because, walking through the space the other day, the big, huge patio, just all the different beers that you have on tap, the different styles that you're experimenting with. Man, like, you've just come so far. There's so much going on. Frogtown Brewery is so multifaceted. And I'm really excited to see like what comes next for you guys. And this beer in particular, Painkiller, it looks like this right now. You guys look out for it. If you find it in your local shop, it might be harder. I say go straight to the source. That's where I like to get my beer. Go straight to the brewery. Check out Frogtown. Head out, hit up their patio, and pick up some Painkiller if you haven't had it. And even if you had, we've already talked about the evolution. It's as good as it's ever been right now. Super delicious beer. Thank you so much for breaking down the story behind it. I feel like I appreciate this beer even more than I did before.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely, this one's got a special spot in my heart. So I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, definitely. It's a special one for me for sure. So thanks so much for this, and congrats on 5 years. You guys are killing it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Gary. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
And that does it for this episode of Beer Breakdown. Thank you so much to Adam from Frogtown Brewery for joining and talking beer with me for about an hour. Really enjoyed that Painkiller. Cannot wait to crack the next one open. And for everybody else, hope you guys enjoyed. Head over to hoppedla.com/subscribe. Join along. You're going to get episodes just like this one and so much more sent straight to your inbox. You'll be the first one to know about everything going on throughout the LA beer scene and beyond. And if you're feeling up to it, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. Leave a rating, leave a review. That stuff really helps us. But in the end, sign up for our email newsletter. That's where all the good stuff comes. So, hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks. Cheers.